Fu Nanhua, the young leader of the old dragon city, was sitting opposite the young man surnamed Song. He carefully held the small part of the mandrill with both hands. He was carefully looking at the score of the mandrill, thought it was like appreciating the graceful body of a beautiful woman. He couldn't get tired of seeing it. Fu Nanhua had tossed and turned for less than half an hour and couldn't put it down. Sure 5. Come update fast ***. There are always some people or things that will make people fall in love at first sight and feel happy. For Fu Nanhua, who is fastidious, this heart-nourishing part is just like this. Although there is only a thin line between picking up a leak and drilling a hole, Fu Nanhua firmly believes that he is the former this time. And the lake he picked up is not small. The old dragon city, where he lives, is among the best among the many religious sects in the south of Dongbao Pingshu. Therefore, Fu Nanhua is a child of the immortal family who has really seen great wealth. This is also the reason why Jian showed weakness everywhere before. Song Jixin yawned, shrunk in his chair, changed a more comfortable position, and asked lazily, "Brother Fu, since the authenticity of the things has been confirmed, should we talk about the price?" Fu Nanhua, who is rarely called a brother, put down the mandrill pot reluctantly and said with a smile, "I must know my sincerity, Brother Song, otherwise, I will never be honest. I will tell you the true value of this pot directly when I meet you. And I won't linger so long. It shows that I am determined to win this pot, so as not to waste time and hurt my brotherhood. Brother Song, Fu Nanhua has regarded you as a failure confidant on the way to practice canal the business at ease. Whether we can depend on good and evil in the future, or even entrust life and death, depends on whether we take this first step today." Song Jixin stretched out a finger, noted the sincere-looking young master Gao Guan, and said with a smile, "Brother Fu, I'm very tacky and smelly, of course. My friends will recognize me. But when everyone sits down to talk about business, if someone tells me about brotherhood, I will inevitably ask myself in my heart whether such a person will need him to talk about brotherhood in the future. In fact, he is making small calculations and doing business in his heart." Fu Nanhua turned cold, leaned back and leaned against the back of the chair. He tapped the table with one finger, moving gently and silently. Song Jixin seemed unaware of the change in Fu Nanhua's attitude. "It's my sincerity to call you Brother Fu and show you this part. Since everyone wants to make a deal, I'll do it quickly. Brother Fu, you give me the price. I know it will shake my head, and I'll give you 2 opportunities to bid. After 2 times, it's equivalent to there's no shop in this village. You promise me Jinshen Yinhai sorry. Brother, I won't sell it. The previous jade pendant was my meeting gift. It was called Old Dragon Cloth Ring. It was not a powerful magic weapon of the immortal family. It was only able to escape the summer, clear the heart and avoid filth. It was especially beneficial to meditation, sitting and forgetting. If there was a secret formula of the Taoist school as an A, it would get twice the result with half the effort." Fu Nanhua smiled sincerely without any arrogant look on his face. He put an embroidered bag on the table and pushed it to Song Jixin with his palm. He solemnly said, "My bag of copper coins, called the money of support, is one of the many incense money in the world. It is generally enshrined in the statues of Town God's Temple or Wenchang Pavilion. It is contained in the mouth, hidden in the stomach, on the palm of the hand. It is all possible, and each has its own stress and function. But these are not the most important ones. The real key is that these coins that look like gold are far more than Huang Jinggui's. It's a heavy golden essence. The immortal once said that the water is green or can be picked, and the secret of the golden essence is not discussed. This bag of golden essence provides money. It's hard to say that it's more than enough to buy a pot of money. After all, it's a fair price. If you add the old dragon pendant, Fu Nanhua dares to say that you definitely earn it." Brother Song, after saying these heartfelt words, Fu Nanhua replied. Song Jixin was silent for a moment, blinked and asked, "Is it over?" Fu Nanhua said with a wry smile, "Finished." The boy suddenly turned his face and slapped on the table. "Go away, Uncle Fu. When you are a 3-year-old kid who is easy to fool, before you enter the town, you will have 3 bags of copper money. Apart from 1 bag of raw money, you should give out 1 bear for every treasure you get, regardless of size. 1 bag of copper money, more than 30 and less than 20. But do you have 12 in your dry and shriveled money bag? I don't want to be honest about this, and I dare to change opportunities in my hands. Fu Nanhua, with his fingers and gravity, tapped the table again and again from slow to fast. Song Jian's heart trembled. For some reason, he had difficulty breathing. His face turned red and his eyes were bloodshot. The boy quickly stretched out a hand and pressed his heart. His heart beat violently like a drum dart. It was like breaking his chest. Fu Nanhua gradually slowed down the speed of finger tapping, and the boy's face improved. Fu Nanhua asked with a smile, "Since I didn't talk about it for the first time, I'll open another price. 20 for gold essence, provide money. Do you sell this mandrill part?" The sweating Song Jian hesitated, seeing the other party's actions. The young man was about to say to ease the situation. The old Dragon City master, who was used to being praised by the stars, has accelerated the beating speed again. Like a sudden summer shower, Song Jian pressed his hands on his chest. His handsome face had long been distorted. With a cruel smile, Fu Nanhua almost couldn't help knocking the wolf cub to death. But at the last moment, the great temptation to step up to the sky and prove his longevity still outweighed his personal likes and dislikes. So he stopped his fingers and let the young man go. Song Jian gasped with hot eyes and a hoarse smile. Fu Nanhua couldn't understand this. There seemed to be no hatred in the young man's eyes. Fu Nanhua didn't think it was a frightening thing. On the road of cultivation, there were many strange people. Just wondering, what are you laughing at? Song Jian's breathing became more and more stable. He leaned back in his chair, wiped off the sweat on his forehead, and his eyes glittered. "I'm very happy when I think that I can have your ability to kill people in the near future." Fu Nanhua left it off, worthy of being a fellow believer who made himself feel sorry for each other. This kind of person is best to deal with, as long as your position is better than him. It may also be the worst to deal with once he climbs to the top of his head. However, the little leader of the old Dragon City doesn't think that after successfully intercepting the opportunity here, he will not be as good as a teenager who hasn't been taken away from the town before the age of 9. Song Jian looked at the small pot and half a bag of copper money on the table. He looked up and said, "Fu Nanhua, I have 2 conditions. As long as you promise, I'll sell you a mandrill pot and take out an old object that won't lose to it." Fu Nanhua pressed down his jaw and said in a flat tone, "As far as possible." "Talk about it." Song Jian didn't sound off, went around in circles, didn't say anything amazing, and kept on saying, "First, I want you to give me 3 bags of gold coins, not 2 bags." Fu Nanhua said without hesitation, "Yes." Song Jian stared into each other's eyes. Fu Nanhua said with a smile, "Believe it or not, at the same time, before I go out today, you must take out that thing worth 2 bags of gold essence and let me have a look at it myself." Song Jian nodded and said, "Of course." Fu Nanhua asked, "So what's the second condition?" Song Jian said slowly, "Kill someone for me." Fu Nanhua shook his head and said, "Since you even know how many copper coins there are in a bag, you should know that we foreigners can kill people here at will. Otherwise, we will be expelled from the town immediately, and even some bones may be cut off. The sage will strip off the relevant opportunities by means of a mortal family. It's terrible to see, and the family will lose all the opportunities here." Song Jian's mouth turned up. "Don't rush to refuse first. You can watch her change. How about it?" Fu Nanhua smiled and asked, "I'm curious. Who do you want to kill?" Song Jian half true and half false way. "I'm thinking too." Fu Nanhua picked up the small pot again, felt the delicate texture of the pot body, and said casually, "Then I'll wait and see." Across the table, the boy subconsciously rubbed his neck. His face was very poor. Before, Zhiguo sent Xianxia to the door of the goose house. At that time, Song Jian's maid went shopping by herself. After Xianxia pushed the door and entered, if she was struck by lightning, she stood still and dared not move. Looking at the old man sitting on the bench, she asked in a trembling voice, elder, the real gentleman of intercepting the river, who was secretly cultivating in Jian Lake. The old man asked, "How do you recognize me?" Jian respectfully said, "My younger generation, Jian of Xianxia Mountain, once followed my father to Jian Lake 10 years ago to watch the wonderful scene of the old turtle carrying the monument out of the water. I was lucky to see my elder style from a distance, though my memory is still fresh and unforgettable." The old man nodded and said, "I see." Jian felt a little heavy. Shenzhen, I wondered the storyteller, known as the true gentleman of intercepting a river, glanced at Han and said calmly, "For the sake of Xianxia's ancestor, I don't care about your coming uninvited. It's not an example. When you get out of the yard, remember to close the door." Jian was only silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "I'll leave first." She really left like this, and she didn't forget to close the door obediently, moving gently and without leakage. In the courtyard, the woman looked at the gate and asked anxiously, "Furry, she doesn't seem to give up. Is there any trouble?" The old man with the title of Shenzhen sneered, "When you enter the town, you may have trouble breathing and farting. Don't you want a chance for this?" The woman was speechless. The old man smiled. "Let me ask you, Gushai, if you can choose, are you willing to let Gukan go to Xianxia Mountain to practice, or follow me to Jian Lake?" Don't rush to answer. The old man waved his hand and told the woman not to hurry to make a statement, saying slowly, "Xianxia Mountain is the second-class mountain gate of our Dongbao Pingshu. However, if you think Xianxia Mountain is not worth mentioning, it is a big mistake. The Yan'an stone produced by Xianxia Mountain is a real treasure of heaven and earth, let alone Dongbao Pingshu. It is the only one in the world. Therefore, Xianxia Mountain has a superior status. Everyone is willing to respect him, especially the sect Taoist Temple of Taoist Standing School. It has a deep relationship with Xianxia Mountain. I'm just one of the friars of Jian Lake. I only occupy an island in the middle of the lake. There are only a few disciples and less than 100 slaves." The woman smiled with a smile. "Sun Yang is half old and still charming. The gap between me and the woman in Xianxia Mountain is the gap between Han and the fairy. How can I let Gu cannot live in the blessed land of the cave and follow the woman to dig food in the field?" The old man smiled brightly. Suddenly he remembered something and said in a deep voice, "What's the boy's life experience? Gu, tell me in detail." "Just in case." The woman was stunned and stroked her hair at the temples. Then she whispered, "The poor child's name is Chen Ping'an. Both her parents grew up in the town. His mother has a good relationship with me. She looks average and has a good temper. I don't seem to have seen her blush with anyone. Her man's appearance can go on the table and really doesn't deserve her. However, she has good porcelain-making skills. If she didn't die early and stay up for 20 years, she could become a member of the Dragon Kill Hand. As for how he died, some people said that he was afraid of breaking the kill fire on that stormy night, hurried on his way, and fell into a stream. Others said that he went to cut firewood and burn charcoal for a small price, broke into the mountain banned by the imperial court and quartered in the mountains and forests by wild animals. In short, the body was not found. The man was so sullen that he couldn't fart with a few sticks. He was good to his children. Every time I go back to town, I have to bring some small gifts, such as small drums, sugar boulder sofas, and old broken porcelain. Generally speaking, the 3 members of that family are safe before the man dies. After Chen Ping'an's father died, his mother probably had a heart disease, and her spirit soon couldn't hold up. Her already weak body broke down. In less than a year, she fell ill and was skinny. Seeing that our old neighbors were all flustered and couldn't recognize the handsome woman who was in the water at that time. It was Chen Ping'an's child who took care of her. The elder children bought medicine, boiled medicine, cooked rice and fried vegetables, and did everything. The child was too short at that time, so he had to step on the bench to cook vegetables. In addition, in order to save money to buy medicine for her mother, some easily seen medicinal materials were searched all over the mountains and sold to the medicine shop. It is estimated that once, When he took the wrong herb and went back to the mud bottle lane with his basket on his back, the child suddenly fell to the ground, foamed at his mouth, and rolled all over the ground. We were so frightened that we thought the family was gone. At that time, my mother-in-law was still alive, so she said that it would be better for the family to go away, so as to save everyone from hardship and have a family reunion in the underworld. Later, the child, I don't know why, I was well. I survived the disease. But the child's mother still couldn't survive the winter. Okama, by the way, immortal master, Chen Ping'an was born on the 5th day of May. The older generation of neighbors in our alley say that this is the most unlucky day of the year, that it's easy to attract dirty things and affect the family. So after the child's parents left, they couldn't find the copper coin at home. Even the small items sent by his father almost went to other parts of the town to exchange food with their peers. Double quotes. When the woman said this, the old man finally said, "The 5th day of May. It's interesting. Let me calculate. 5 fingers pinch true. Sleep has heaven and earth." Seeing the woman in a daze, the old man smiled and said, "Just keep talking." The woman said, "For the sake of our neighbors for so many years, although we who live in the mud bottle lane don't dare to bring Chen Ping'an to our home, we can still do this little thing by giving him relief from time to time and sending a few bowls of food. People's hearts are full of flesh. To tell the truth, if it wasn't the child's birthday, it would be frightening. Otherwise, no one wouldn't be the stressed, sensible child. Of course, there are also unkind people in the neighborhood. Some guys who can't see other people's good like to deliberately trample on the child, so that he finally had to become a kill worker apprentice. You know, before his mother died, he asked the child to promise her that even if he was a beggar, he would never be allowed to waken the dragon kill in the future. So, being filial and obedient to a child can help him. It's certainly not an ordinary thing to let him break his oath. The old man asked, "Do you know the names and birthdays of the young parents?" The woman only said she knew her name, but no one knew the 8 characters of her birthday. The old man said it was no problem. A moment later, he sneered and said, "Small tricks. Tricks." The woman was confused. The old man explained, "The man died in an untimely death. He probably knew the secret of the town by accident. Unfortunately, his luck was far worse than yours, and Jian was even worse than yours. Finally, the man secretly broke the live porcelain vase for the safety of his son. In this way, naturally, a religious store outside the town was empty. This is a big investment. A small kill worker can't afford to pay for it, so he had to pay for it. Life is equal to life. If one life is not enough, plus the death of his daughter-in-law, it is ridiculous. It may be that the death of the kill worker was too light for some people, and they were too lazy to waste excess energy. Therefore, it is inappropriate to use the cover technique to hide the world and the sea." The woman's face was gloomy. The old man looked into the woman's mind and asked with a smile, "Why? Do you regret?" The woman smiled miserably. "There is guilt. After all, it is the child I watched grow up. There must be. But if you want to say repentance, there is absolutely none." The old man nodded and said, "I see." The woman said to herself, "If Chen Ping'an was in my present position, I believe she would do the same." The old man shook his head and said, "That's not necessarily true." The woman said loudly without reason, "She will." The old man was not angry with her rudeness, but said with emotion, "Poor parents all over the world." The straw sandal boy sat on the threshold. "Miss Ning, can I ask you something?" The girl in black sat cross-legged with her back against the wall and the grain-sheathed narrow knife across her lap. "Of course, but if it comes to confidentiality and privacy, I won't answer." Chen Ping'an asked, "How long do you usually stay here before you leave?" The girl frowned. "Not necessarily. Some people are lucky. Maybe they go back and forth on the same day. Some people are unlucky and will be here all their life. If I have to give an inference, it's okay, but it may not be accurate. You can do it yourself. For example, our group of people. One group of 8 people and 2 groups belong to big dogs. People have a lot of silly money. They don't seem to be in a hurry. Why should they be in the town after staying for a few days? The child with the high crown and the jade pendant estimated that it would be relatively smooth. There was a big fool who focused on dealing with the whale. Whether he could succeed or not depends on whether God would reward him with this bowl of rice. Chen Ping'an asked, "Is there anyone else?" "Who?" "It's the tall young woman. Do you like her?" Chen Ping'an at the door smiled and didn't take her seriously at all. The girl in black probably felt that she had told a funny joke and looked heavy. "In fact, I heard you chatting with Dao's Lu. You have a grudge with her. So you want revenge." She sighed. "I advise you. People on the hillside like you are no different from those at the foot of the mountain in the eyes of those at the top of the mountain. Not only do they have higher eyes than the top, but they are really qualified to look down on you. When they arrive at the land of the end of the law, they can kill you even if they punch the woman of Xianxia mountain. The child in red robe. On your chest vomit blood in a big bowl. On the contrary, you punch him hard and dare not scratch. Cut the most is to make him feel stuffy and never hurt his internal organs. As for the reason, it's difficult to break it clearly. Mainly because I'm no good at talking about it." Chen Ping'an turned his back to the house, looked at the door and said, "I want to know why she killed me that we met for the first time, after brewing for a long time." The girl said, "She may not be the kind of person who kills innocent people indiscriminately. How to say that? On the road of cultivation, she travels through mountains and rivers, ranging from wide to narrow, from Yanghuan Road to single wooden bridge. She walks fast. She accidentally tramples on ants and catches a few fish from the river. When she is hungry, her Taoist skills are successful. It is possible to use them as bow and kill birds, snakes and mice by mistake. I don't speak very well, do you understand what I mean?" Chen Ping'an gave a sound and said, "I roughly understand." Then the boy was a little dull and looked at the gate of the hospital again. In fact, he doesn't understand at all. He doesn't understand why those people can be so indifferent to other people's lives. After a long time, Chen Ping'an turned his head and said with a smile, "If the girl doesn't dislike it, just live here, just say what you need. What about you?" "I know a man. I'm going to live with him these 2 days. Don't worry. His name is Liu Xianxia. He's my friend, good friend." The girl looked at the thin figure on the threshold and said with a smile, "Thank you." The young man grinned, scratched his head, and said nothing polite. He hesitated for a moment, finally summoned up his courage and turned his head again. "Miss Ning, if I can come back one day, you can give my bag of gold copper money to Liu Xianxia and ask him to take care of the house for me in the future. He doesn't have to clean it. He can repair it occasionally and add some new tiles to prevent it from leaking rain. In addition, don't collapse the wall and the gate of the yard. It's best if you can paste the door guard and Spring Festival couplets on the New Year's Eve. If you think it's too troublesome, it doesn't matter if you don't do it." When the girl saw Chen Ping'an talking about the door guard and Spring Festival couplets, the boy's eyes flashed a strange brilliance. Obviously, the orphan of the Mud Bottle Lane has been thinking for many years that there will be a door guard on the door and the word spring on the lintel during the new year. How many years after my parents died? I thought about how many years. So when the carefree and heartless boy gently spit out a mouthful of turbid air, patted his knee, and stood up slowly, the scabbard flying sword resting on the table in the house suddenly hissed. When Fu Nanhua walked out of the house, he found the beautiful maid sitting on a small bench in the yard, holding a handful of corn in her hand, feeding the chicken. The old hen with a group of yellow fluffy chicks pegged down. After seeing her, Fu Nanhua smiled. The girl didn't know whether she was shy or naturally indifferent. She pulled the corners of her mouth and regarded it as a salute. Fu Nanhua opened the gate and found Xianxia waiting in the alley. He was not very interested. He turned and closed the door. Through the narrow crack in the door, he saw a face looking up. Fu Nanhua suddenly found that the servant girl, a poor girl who should be covered with earth breath, had a pair of very good eyes, which set off her like a touch of tender green in early spring. However, Fu Nanhua did not think much about it. The beautiful woman is fat and thin. She is graceful and graceful for the young master of the old dragon city. She is really tired of seeing it. Walking side by side with Xianxia, Fu Nanhua asked, "What's the matter?" It's not going well. The opportunity is a matter of good things. It may not be able to make a final decision again and again. Don't lose heart. Xianxia is naturally gentle and charming. After practicing, he washes marrow and cuts bones. In terms of body, of course, she is as clean as glass compared with secular women. The woman at the foot of the mountain is amazing at first sight. In the final analysis, she is just a smelly skin bag. At this time, the fairy in Xianxia mountain doesn't look very good. It can be seen how bad her mood is. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so obvious on her face. She should have been angry when waiting in the alley. She really doesn't spit out. An expert got there first. He is one of the local snakes of Jian Lake. Liu Shamao, the real king of intercepting a river, has no room for discussion. When he moved out of the little Shizu of Xianxia mountain to oppress the younger generation of me. I only said a few words from beginning to end and drove him out of the Gukan's yard. Funan was thoughtful and reminded, talk again when you get out of the mud bottle lane. Xianxia wondered, isn't it all forbidden here? Funan smiled. Who doesn't have the ability to press the bottom of the box? Young people like you and me may be okay. According to the rules of the town, the more advanced the cultivation is, the greater the suppression is. Under the sage, the closer the realm is to the sage, the weaker it is as a child, right? But have you ever thought that if there were virtuous experts who work hard on Taoism, it will be damaged if you want to use your magic power? Is it really not as good as US backward people? Xianxia retorted, if there is a saint here, just you dare to cut off Zhang Shenzhen and brazenly attack me. Funan advised, we're here to find good luck, not to make a grudge. Even if we don't have the worry of life, it's not beautiful to have a bad relationship with the predecessors. Xianxia is not a person who is at the tip of a bull's horn. He nodded and said, what Brother Fu said is very true. It's an old and prudent theory. She looked bitter and pitiful, but I'm really unwilling. I've given you 10 cloudroot stones. If you can't draw water with a bamboo basket, how can you tell your grandparents when you go back? After walking out of the mud bottle lane, Funan and Xianxia were almost refreshed at the same time. It was not as simple as the light suddenly became bright. They looked at each other, and then their eyes quickly staggered. Funan, who was originally very excited, was also much calmer. He thought carefully about his trip to the alley and his alliance with Xianxia. There was no mistake in his deal with young Song Jian. It was originally a fair deal in line with the rules. Would the sage who sat and watched the wind and the water rise and fall here have any leisure to intervene? So where does the pressure come from? Is it the Shenzhen who has never even heard of his name? Compared with Funan far-reaching thoughts, Xianxia's idea is simpler. She thinks that Funan is right. Shenzhen has indeed used some magic powers to monitor herself. She is afraid for a while. Fortunately, she just said some complaining words and didn't say anything cruel and angry. As they walked along the street, the farther away they were from the mud bottle lane, the less doubt they felt. Funan felt that it was the weight of opportunity, and Xianxia felt that it was the weight of family burden. Looking up at the memorial archway in the distance, Funan asked curiously, the real king who intercepts the river in Jian Lake. Why don't I remember at all? Even if my old dragon city is located in the far south of a continent, I should know what the real king is. No matter how ignorant I am. Xianxia lowered her voice and sneered. What kind of real gentleman? He's just a real person in the front of the side door. He's the most dignified, and he's not qualified to be called a real gentleman. He's just a flattering word of a good man. Considering how smart Emperor Yuan Wu is, he won't call him a real gentleman. One relish and one pet, and one real gentleman's head title, which may mean that he won't get it back for 200 years, plus the ancestors of Emperor Yuan Wu in his hands. There are only 2 real kings left, and he will not casually give a side door for wild repair. Funan suddenly said, I see. Every true monarch sitting in the dynasty can gather, suppress, and increase the national fortune for the monarch. The position of the true monarch of Taoism is almost a member of the Taoist sect. It is also listed at the top of the temple of the secular dynasty. the apple-pillar state of the strategist, and the great scholar of Confucianism. Jian seemed to ask casually, "How about Song Zhisheng?" Fu Nanhua also casually replied, "That young man is ambitious, naturally intelligent, and his backer is not small." "Which is the pattern, Jian said with a smile. "Not big." Fu Nanhua said with a laugh, "I can't say it's not big. It's just not big enough." When they came to the archway, Fu Nanhua was in high spirits and murmured, "Time comes. Heaven and earth work together." Jian looked up at the words "don't ask" outside. She was empty in her heart. She only felt disappointed that it seemed that the epiphany she had obtained in the mud bottle lane had been returned to the town. It made her very upset. Song Jixen's house belongs to a large family in the mud bottle lane. In addition to the lobby with plaque, there are also left and right side houses. The plaque in the lobby is Huaiyuan Hall and has no signature. Song Jixen always feels that it is not everyone's handwriting only. The master and servant are staying in the main house of Song Jixen at the moment. The boy is rummaging through the boxes and cabinets. The servant girl is standing at the door. She asked softly, "Young master, have you talked about business?" Song Jixen put down a string of bells and sat back on the only chair in the house, holding the back of his head with both hands and crossing his legs. Fu Nanhua of the old Dragon City is not all a fool at the beginning. He didn't treat me as an injustice leader who doesn't know the world, but he's not smart enough. It's fun to want to make friends with me. Later, he was cheated by me and showed his fox's tail. He thought that he could use both grace and power to frighten me. Compared with Che, who was unpredictable, sir. It's 18,000 miles away. The maidservant Zhigui said. It's 18,000 miles. Child, your statement is too exaggerated. Song Jixen made a face and said, "There are 10 mud bottle lanes." The boy threw a bag to his maidservant. "Look, this is the copper money mentioned in the secret letter." The man surnamed Chen next door also got a bag. I thought it might not be a good thing for him to have this grey fortune on his head. Sure enough, it annoyed the two dog men and women. I think the man surnamed Chen still has trouble to eat next door, by the way. Chowdy Gui. I tell you, the guy who came to our house calls himself is the young leader of the old Dragon City. Listen to his tone and look at it as a pie. At least it's not an embroidered pillow, and this jade pendant it's definitely worth money. Song Jixen photographed the green and lovely jade pendant, which had been hung on his waist. At the bottom of his heart, he felt that he was a big step closer to Mr. Kiss Scholar. Zhigui opened the exquisite embroidered bag and asked softly, "Child, can you earn more copper money back?" Song Jixen asked with a smile. "Do you like it?" Zhigui twisted a gold copper coin with her fingers, shook it, and said with a happy smile, "It's gold. How festive it is." Song Jixen chuckled. "That's okay. Okay. Since you like it, I'll get more bags back. The money is outside, including the pressure-winning money on the beam, the spring-greeting money on the peach charm, and the support money in the belly or hand of the Buddha. However, the common people have the attention of the common people, and the fairy family has the saying of the fairy family." She smiled and squinted, like two crescent moons, and asked, "Champion and S-bag?" Song Jixin frowned. The maidservant noticed her child's strange mood, carefully put away the copper money, tied the bag tightly, and whispered, "What's the matter?" Song Jixin curled his mouth, covered his neck with his hands, twisted it, and said softly, "It's all right. I think of some junk things. The one surnamed Chen is not in a hurry to avoid causing trouble. It's Zhao Yu, a bookworm. He will probably get copper money. He's easy to cheat. I'll take care of it and get you a bag." Seeing that the maid was a little strange, Song Jixen didn't continue to explain. Seeing that her child was not interested in talking, the girl didn't break the casserole and asked to the end. Ji Gui went out of the house and came to the courtyard. She saw the naturally troublesome quadruped snake lying half dead on the ground, basking in the sun and often rolling. She enjoyed it very much. A burst of angry girl walked quickly, stepped on the quadruped's head and twisted her toes. The poor little fellow moaned. She raised her feet, and the quadruped swished away. running all over the yard and hitting the wall. My own yellow quadruped snake. Greedy golden carp accidentally into the fish basket. Black loach raised by cooking in a water tank. Gold. Wood. Water. Fire and earth, a 3 out of 5. Looking at the four-legged snake with horns on its head, the girl grinned and despised. Stupid thing. In the yard of Guken's family, the old man and the woman still sit opposite each other. The former stretches at his palm and looks at the spread of palm lines. He is no relaxed. The old man stopped his hand, looked up and asked, "Girl, are there many women like you who marry foreign men in the town?" The woman shook her head and said, "It shouldn't be much. Anyway, I'm the only one on the side of my bottle lane and apricot flower lane." The old man hesitated and still laid some secrets to her. The 6-year-old and 12-year-old girls and the 9-year-old and 18-year-old boys are two big thresholds. The former needs to cross by themselves, while the latter can push by external force. Then there is one more thing to be sure. The richer the family is, the more advantages it has. The first steps can only depend on the fate, especially the first step. Success or failure depends on whether God will reward you with food. The woman's eyes were full of laughter. Can be seen by the fairy. Is Guken the one who can take the first step by himself? The old man smiled and said, "As long as he is a child who grew up in a small town, it means that his born qualification is not outstanding. Although Guken is not 9 years old, he is no exception." The woman's face was very ugly for a moment. The old man raised his foot, stamped the ground and smiled. "Don't worry. Good or bad roots are of course important, but they are not the first dog God likes it. Even a dog and the wild grass on the roadside can slowly build a road and finally climb to the sky. This time, the town makes an exception to allow so many outsiders to enter no matter how good the soil and water is. After dozens of years of reclamation, cultivation, and harvest, it will at times there are also many times of fishing at no cost, which will also decline, and there will always be a completely barren day. The geomantic heritage here has finally ushered in the last big year. When a person is about to die, his energy and spirit will become particularly majestic. Your family can benefit from this. The opportunity is far greater than imagined, even far more than those before a gifted small-town child. The woman's lips trembled and tried her best to suppress her surprise. Her eyes were watery and flowed a bit of attractive charm. The old man glanced at her and said with a smile, "Of course, don't be greedy. Your son is definitely not the only one who has this great opportunity. To put it mildly, even if there were people in such a big dumbbell bottle island who are qualified to monopolize this luck, they must not have been born." The woman held her hands in her heart and whispered, "Enough. Enough." The old man thought of the younger woman in Xianxia mountain and said sarcastically, "I'm busy and exhausted. I only know to ask for some external things. I rarely pick sesame and lost watermelon. It's foolish." Then the old man smiled. "That's right. Those old people in Xianxia mountain have never had a big vision. Otherwise I wouldn't have got this opportunity. With an almost inexhaustible treasure mountain, they should have been rolling and booming. But they have fallen to the point where they need to rely on an apprentice and grandson to support the scene. In the house, the child, who had been punching and kicking at the door for a long time, stood on a stool, lay prone at the window, and begged bitterly, "Mom, let me out. Okay? I promise you to be obedient." The woman looked at the old fairy and the latter nodded. She just opened the door, took the child's hand and walked into the yard together. She said quietly with a straight face, "See, Ken, don't make trouble. Do you know, my mother has never beaten you. If you dare not obey, my mother will really hit you again." The child said, drooping his head and sick. Guken brought a small bench and sat down with his mother and the old man. The child held up his skills with both hands. "Mom, what did you say to the storyteller just now? I can't hear you clearly in the room. Can you say it again?" The old man let out a sound. After a little thought, his wrist shook. The big white bowl reappeared in the palm of his hand. He looked down and looked at it with dark eyes. He saw ripples and occasional splashes on the water surface of the white bowl. A black line swam around the white bowl and hit the bowl wall from time to time. The old man said to himself, "It's all right, let's go." In order to accept the apprentice, the old man tried his best to break down for decades in the mud bottle lane before he successfully moved his hands and feet 3 times. One was to let the woman step on dog shit. The last time was to convince him of his enlightenment with secret skills. If he was outside the town, of course, it would be impossible. He was a true Taoist king, and I'm afraid he didn't dare to do so. But in the town, Jian was no different from ordinary people. The old man had an opportunity to take advantage of it at a great cost. The second time was the most exquisite. Even the old man thought it was a masterstroke, which made the woman mistakenly think that the kind reminder of the straw sandal boy was actually cunning revenge. At that time, the old man let the boy speak out. Slow down a little, and just let the woman catch this detail. It can be said that it is not deliberate. On the road of cultivation, people in the same way, good and evil, between the lines. At this time, Goose had hung up in the hospital for fear that the old fairy would say any bad news. The old man pulled the corners of his mouth. In the light of the corners of his eyes, a child stood up quietly, and then ran to the gate. The woman screamed. The old man stood up with a white ball in his hand. "Apprentice, as a teacher, I'll show you what the heaven and earth is, so that you don't know how important it is and spoil the great cause of you, my teachers and disciples." The woman was black in front of her eyes and fainted to the ground. The old man waved his sleeve. The next moment, the child, who was just about to meet the doorbell, stumbled and fell to the ground. But when he found something wrong, he looked around at a loss. Finally, he raised his head and looked at the storyteller standing next to him. "Where is this?" the old man said calmly. "In the bowl." The child became more and more confused. Suddenly, he heard the old man yell, "Get up!" The child instinctively stood up and did not move. Gokun found that he seemed to be standing on the edge of a cliff in the distance ahead. The sea of clouds was surging. Then, the child stared in horror. In the vast expanse of white, a huge trunk broke through the clouds and moved slowly. But it is too big to show its complete true face. The child was so frightened that he was about to step back, when the old man soon pressed his head with his palm and said sternly, "As soon as you step back, you will be unable to walk on the road of cultivation in the future. Stand firm for me." Gokun was so frightened that tears flowed out of his eyes. The naughty child, who had never been lawless, dared not even cry. The child could not restrain his body completely. His legs trembled and his lips trembled. The sea of clouds in the distance boils. The misty white clouds seemed to be fading away, so the sky showed more black, very long and huge, just like the little loach raised in his own water tank, soared and grew up. There was no reason for such an idea to pop up in the child's mind. At that moment, Gokun couldn't help but take a step forward, stretch out his slender arm and face the sky. A huge head like a mountain swam slowly from the sea of clouds. The child's eyes were bright and he was not afraid at all. He even waved and shouted, "Come on, come on. You've grown so big. No wonder I always think there will be a lot less fish, shrimp and crabs in the water tank the next day." Standing behind Gokun, Jian Lake intercepts the river. Shenzhen has mixed feelings, both heavy loss and jealousy, and spontaneous gratification. Although I certainly have no such great fortune, it's a blessing to have this disciple. It's definitely worth the trip. The old man saw the approaching of the head with his own eyes and whispered, "The wonders of the world." Chen Ping and suddenly told the girl in black to come into the house. Finally, he squatted in the corner, turned his back to her and hid something in the palm of his hand. After he went out, he said he was going to buy her pottery pot for the cocking medicine. His family led this. The girl glanced at an old jar in the shade at the corner of her eyes after the straw sandal boy left quickly. And in fact, the girl's hearing is very good. The object in the palm of his hand is a piece of broken porcelain, which is extremely sharp.